What's up, guys? Tobin here with you. Thanks for checking out the channel. Much appreciated. Got All-Star Weekend going into it. You got some big things to watch. As far as tonight's concerned, you got Dwayne Wade. He's coaching the celebrity game because he owns a piece of the Jazz, which is still weird to me. I'm not going to lie. I mean, good for D-Wade making boatloads of money and being in big business deals, but it is strange, nonetheless, to have him associated with any team that has Danny Ainge, as Eric Spoelstra said last year. Now that thirst is quenched, you also have Tyler Hero in the three-point contest. Leroy and I, we have put a friendly wager on that, so I'm happy to have action on Boy Wonder, and hopefully he can come through for your boy here, and I can beat Leroy in a bet. I don't beat him in many bets, so I need Tyler Hero to come through for me. And then, of course, we got to watch what Bam does in the All-Star game and see who he gets drafted by, whether it's Team LeBron or Team Giannis, all right? And next year, he'll be the captain because obviously he will go from not being in top 10 of votes to the number one vote getter. People will know. The Bam fans will realize the bandwagon will come into full effect. So that'll be an exciting thing to check out. But I think that even fans, probably more so than even Bam being in the All-Star game, they're interested to see how this all goes, this All-Star break, with the health of the team, number one, and then number two, what's going to happen with these buyouts, because there were some interesting things that were reported by people who cover the team on a day-to-day basis. First of all, Anthony Chang had some interesting things on the Heat's health status. One, that Hero is on track to take part of the three-point contest, even though he's day-to-day with his injury. Jovic is coming close to a comeback after he's missed 24 games with a back injury. Kyle Lowry's going to miss the rest of the month and maybe even more time into March. We'll get into Kyle Lowry more in just a second. Oladipo, they were cautious with, but he seems like he'll be back after the break. And then Omer Yurtseven is expected to make his debut, which is maybe the thing that's interesting is, like, if you are a Heat fan, like, what are going to be the more important things that they get? Is it going to be from guys they already have or guys they've been waiting on in Omer Yurtseven and getting Victor Oladipo back? Obviously, getting Tyler back will be huge. But specifically, Vic and Omer, will they be bigger additions than whatever they do in the buyout market? And what's out there right now, we talked about the Kevin Love thing pretty feverishly the last video. And nothing too new on that other than apparently the Suns are also going to be in on Kevin Love. And that's an interesting thing is, what do you sell Kevin Love on to come here? We know that he has a great admiration for Bam Adebayo. Do they have to promise him a starting job? Do they have to promise him a lot of minutes? Does that stuff all matter? It's going to be it's such an interesting thing right now because the Heat have this dynamic in the locker room with guys in their roles and guys they're trying to keep happy already on the team. And then you're also going to bring in guys who have been to pretty high heights in their career. And how do they just fit in serving a role? Are they cool with that? Do they feel like they're going to be that final piece? It's an interesting mix that they got. And it was very eyebrow raising to read the tweet/reports coming from Barry Jackson, where the Heat are giving a lot of intel or getting a lot of intel on Russell Westbrook. And I believe the term that Barry threw up was concern, that there was concern around, some of the things that they had gotten back on Westbrook, in that they're interested in him, but that they are, apparently hearing from other teams some things that may give them pause, may have them, second guessing whether they are going to do it. Don't know. He said the feedback they receive has created some concerns. Can't go beyond that at this point. They've solicited input from those they trust who have worked with Westbrook, and that input has not been an overwhelming endorsement. So, and that's, I don't think that's surprising. That Russell Westbrook, a guy who's been on 4 teams in 4 years, is got some bridges that he has burned, and you have to be concerned with that if you're the Heat, because he is a very highly credentialed player who's going to come into your atmosphere, and you're wondering how much is he going to be willing to step in there and be in a role. Is he going to come off the bench like he did with the Lakers? Is he going to be pissed off about that? I don't know. And the thing that makes it interesting with it is I see on levels it making sense for Miami because they have made it work with guys who didn't work elsewhere before. They seem to thrive off those conflict enjoying players and can try and harbor and feed that, at least for a short term. It doesn't always work for everybody all the time, but they usually can get it out of anybody for a little bit. You know, it doesn't always, like, you think about a guy like Shaquille O'Neal, not the guy who got in shape the most, but like they were able to keep Shaq in focus long enough to win. Some guys like Dion Waiters, they could get him to buy into it enough until he gets a multi-year deal. Same thing with a guy like Hassan Whiteside, James Johnson. So there's part of me that really believes that the Heat, if they brought in Russell Westbrook, they could get through this year with a Russell Westbrook and be okay. But there's another part of me that's also looking at it and saying, well, they have this whole Kyle Lowry thing that is still hanging over that has an air of uncomfortability to it, but Kyle doesn't really let that be known. And I think that's, you got to credit Kyle Lowry with that. He does handle everything publicly very professionally. And I think that the difference between Kyle Lowry and Russell Westbrook is Russell Westbrook, well, like, if he feels slighted or feels like he's being wronged, he'll publicly air it. Like that's, whether that's, not being happy about coming off the bench, not being happy with other guys' effort, whatever. He's not going to just sit there quietly. Russell Westbrook is going to let you know how he feels. Kyle is a lot more subtle, I think, than that. And so when you're looking at this situation of bringing in the former MVP and what he can add to your team, you get the good part of it, but like is there already this sensitive thread that they have to handle with their current point guard before they bring in another highly credentialed point guard who is, already on another new team after all of this, after bouncing around for so many years in a row. So very, very interesting. But I did like the fact that the IRA had reported that the number one priority is really fixing the power rotation and getting a Serge Ibaka or a Kevin Love. Again, I don't know if any of these teams, I don't know if any of those guys by themselves make the Heat a contender. I honestly certainly don't think they really do, but they do help. And if you could support the roster construction in any way in what has been so stagnant and really felt like they have done nothing, to give any kind of a jolt of different, I think really is going to help in some kind of way of just at least reinvigorating the club. And especially if you have a guy like Kevin Love who, isn't a great defender, but certainly helps with rebounding and shooting and, seems to have an admiration for one of your stars. Did have that kerfuffle with, not a kerfuffle. He had like some jabs that he had took at Jimmy Butler for his 4 a.m. workouts, but then had tweeted really positive stuff about Jimmy Butler after that. So I feel like that stuff can all work out in a pretty good way. I don't see the issue with Kevin Love. Kevin Love makes all the sense in the world. Russell Westbrook makes some sense, but I honestly understand. I think the conflict the Heat are having are probably things that fans have been thinking about too. It's like, yeah, like anything to spark this season, any kind of talent you can bring in that's better is good. But you have to know that there is that ecosystem of the team. I don't like the fact that he was called a vampire publicly. I thought that was a low-ass blow from the Lakers reporters to leak something like that, because that just seems strong, especially when it seems like there were other guys around that team that have brought it down as well. But, I don't completely neglect the idea that there is some type of balance that you have to strike there between Russell Westbrook being a big infusion of talent, but also knowing he can be inefficient. He can want the ball in the wrong spots where you want it in other stars' hands, and can throw things off in that way. So it certainly feels like some other shoe is going to drop soon. And if he goes to Chicago, listen, you get Goran Dragic off those Bulls, and you bring that that adorable dragon right back here to South Florida. And, maybe you think Gogi doesn't have anything left. I think he throws on that Heat jersey. He's going to be like Superman. But even still, at least it'll make us all happy, right? That'll make me happy.